We'd been planning the dinner for weeks. My husband, Leo, and I were hosting my oldest friend, Sarah, and her new boyfriend, Mark, who were in town for a week. Sarah and I have that college friend history that feels like bedrock. She knew me before I was a wife, a mother, a professional. She'd seen me through breakups, family drama, everything. I was excited for her to finally meet Leo properly, not just in passing at our wedding. Leo, a quiet, steady architect who expresses love through action more than words, had spent the whole day prepping. He'd built a new patio table himself, just for the occasion. He'd researched a complex Peruvian dish because Sarah mentioned once she loved lomo saltado. The air smelled like cumin, seared steak, and anticipation. The night started fine. Mark was what my mom would call a lot. Loud, opinionated, the kind of guy who pronounces foreign cities with exaggerated, incorrect accents to sound worldly. He dominated the conversation, talking over Sarah, dismissing Leo's quiet comments about sustainable design with a wave of his hand. Theory is for academics, my man. The real world runs on concrete and cash. Leo just nodded, a tight smile on his face, and refreshed everyone's drink. I saw the flicker in his eyes. The one I know means he's retreating into polite, impenetrable calm. The real fracture happened over dessert. Leo brought out his masterpiece, lucuma mousse with fresh berries. Mark took a bite, made a face. Huh, gritty. You get this from a box? Leo patiently explained lucuma was a Peruvian fruit with a unique texture. Mark shrugged. Tastes like sweet dirt, no offense. Sarah laughed, a nervous titter. Mark, be nice. Then Mark, leaning back, surveying our backyard, the garden Leo had terraced, the custom grill station he'd welded, the beautiful, simple table, said, So, Leo, you do all this handyman stuff yourself? Makes sense. Good skill for a... He paused. The world slowed. I saw his eyes glazed with a third glass of Leo's good bourbon flick over Leo, over his brown hands dusted with flour from the fry bread he'd made, over the faint accent that softens his vowels, a legacy of his childhood in Mexico City before his family moved here. The word fell into the warm evening air like a shard of glass. It was a slur, a specific, ugly, dehumanizing term for a laborer. It wasn't a slip. It was delivered with a contemptuous precision. The silence was absolute. The chirping crickets might as well have been air raid sirens. Leo froze, the serving spoon hovering over the mousse. His face didn't crumple and hurt. It went blank, smooth as marble. A defense mechanism I've only seen twice before, both times when he faced raw, unexpected bigotry. My own heart was a hammer against my ribs. I looked at Sarah. Her mouth was a perfect O of horror. Before I could find my voice, before Leo could move, Mark blinked. He waved his hand, a dismissive, fluttering gesture, as if brushing away a fly. A grin spread across his face, a grotesque mask of bonhomie. Oh, shit, hey, no harm meant, buddy, he boomed. Sorry, it's just my tourist right, you know? When you're on vacation, you get a pass to say the quiet part out loud. Cultural immersion. He laughed a single hollow ha and reached out to clap Leo on the shoulder. Leo didn't flinch. He just took a slow, deliberate step back, letting Mark's hand fall through empty air. He looked at Mark, then at Sarah, then finally at me. In his eyes, I didn't see anger at Mark. That would be giving the idiot too much credit. I saw a profound, weary disappointment. In the evening, in my friend, perhaps for a fleeting second, in me, for bringing this into our sanctuary. He placed the serving spoon silently on the table. He said, Excuse me, his voice terrifyingly even. He turned and walked into the house. The back door clicked shut behind him. The tourist right. He'd compared the violation of my husband's dignity to overpaying for a souvenir. He'd framed his bigotry as a perk of travel. The apology wasn't an apology. It was a justification and a declaration that in his world, Leo would always be part of the scenery, not a person. I stood up. My legs were water. I looked at Sarah, who was staring at her lap, her face crimson. I said, Sarah, you need to leave, now. Mark had the audacity to look surprised. Whoa, come on, it was a joke. You guys are so sensitive. We're all friends here. He didn't understand. He would never understand. He wasn't even the main problem anymore. The problem was the woman sitting next to him, my bedrock friend, who was now staring at her hands, silent. Her silence was the second, deeper cut. The sound of Sarah's car door shutting was the period at the end of the worst sentence of my life. The quiet that followed was thick and sickly, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen window. I stood alone in the ruins of our perfect evening. The beautiful table, the empty mousse glasses, the citronella candle still flickering innocently. I found Leo in his workshop, the detached garage he'd insulated and wired himself. He wasn't raging. He wasn't crying. He was methodically cleaning his woodworking planes, running a sharpening stone over the blade with a rhythmic, precise swish, swish, swish. His back was to me, his shoulders rigid. Leo. The sharpening stopped. He didn't turn. Is the company gone? Yes. Good. I walked further into the space, smelling sawdust and linseed oil. Leo, look at me, please. He sighed, a deep, weary sound, and finally turned. The marble mask was still there, but his eyes were alive with a hurt so deep it made my breath catch. What do you want me to say, Maya? I want you to be angry, scream, throw something. That creature. He's irrelevant, Leo said, his voice low. A drunk, ugly little man. He's a symptom. He set the plane down with a soft clack. The disease was her silence. There it was, the core of it. The poison wasn't just the word, it was the ecosystem that allowed it to be spoken, then excused. She was shocked, I offered, lamely. Was she, or was she embarrassed? There's a difference. Shock is a reflex. Embarrassment is a social calculation. She calculated that saying something to him in front of us would be more awkward than letting the insult to me stand. He finally looked at me. Your oldest friend made a calculation, Maya, and I lost. I felt the truth of it like a physical blow. Sarah's horrified "oh" of a mouth had produced no sound. No, "Mark, you unbelievable asshole, get out." No, "Leo, I am so sorry." Just silence, then a frantic gathering of purses and a mumbled, "We should go," after I had told them to leave. "I'll call her," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll end the friendship, tonight." Leo shook his head. "Don't." "What? Why?" "Because if you do it tonight in anger, for me, it becomes my burden, my fault your 20-year friendship is over." He came closer, his hands, still smelling of metal and oil, coming up to frame my face. "This is not about you choosing me over her. That's a given. This is about you seeing what I saw. When you see it, truly see it, you'll know what to do, and it won't feel like a choice. It will feel like a fact." He kissed my forehead, a gesture of heartbreaking tenderness after the brutality of the evening. "I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late." He left me in the workshop. I sat on his stool, surrounded by the evidence of his love, the careful tools, the half-built dollhouse for our niece, the plans for the new garden trellis. This was who Mark had reduced to a slur. This man who built worlds. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Sarah. "Maya, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. Mark is mortified. He's just like that sometimes. He doesn't think. Can we talk tomorrow?" The message was a masterpiece of cowardice. Mark is mortified, not I am mortified by Mark. He's just like that, an excuse, a shrugging acceptance of his character. He doesn't think, an infantilization, as if bigotry is a cognitive lapse, not a moral failing. Leo was right. Her silence at the table had been a preview. This text was the sequel. She was managing the fallout, not confronting the atrocity. She was asking for a talk, not offering an unequivocal condemnation. The friendship I thought was bedrock was sand, and the tide had just rushed out. I didn't reply. I just sat in the quiet dark, replaying the moment. Not Mark's vile mouth, but Sarah's face. The shock that hadn't turned to action. The friend I thought would have a sword for me, for us, had instead shown she owned a rug and was ready to sweep ugliness under it if it made the evening more comfortable. For the first time, I saw the gulf between us. It wasn't about politics, it was about humanity. And on her side of the gulf, my husband was not fully a person. He was a potential social inconvenience. I didn't sleep. I lay beside Leo, feeling the heat of his body, but sensing a new, invisible distance. He slept fitfully. At dawn, he got up for his run, leaving a kiss on my temple as if it were any normal day. The normality was a performance, for my sake. It broke my heart a little more. Sarah's text sat unanswered. By 9 a.m., she'd sent another. "Really hoping we can connect. This is awful. We leave tomorrow." The "we" grated. The looming departure time presented as a deadline for my forgiveness. I showed Leo the texts over coffee. He read them, his expression unchanged. "She wants absolution before her flight," he said. "She wants to leave thinking she's still a good person who had an awkward night." What should I do? What do you want to do? I didn't want to talk. I wanted to rewind time. I wanted my friend to have been someone else. But beneath the hurt, a cold fury was solidifying. I want her to understand what she did, what she allowed. "Then you have to tell her," he said. "Not about how mad you are, about what her silence cost." He went to work. I was left with the quiet house and the specter of the conversation. I wasn't ready. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I stalked Sarah's social media. Not her main profile, but Mark's. It was a public feed, a travel blog of their trip. There were pictures of my table, my food, my backyard. Captions: "Amazing home-cooked Peruvian feast with old friends. #cultural. #authentic. The hypocrisy stole my breath. Then a post from last night, after they'd returned to their hotel. A selfie of them smiling, glasses of wine in hand. Mark's caption: "Sometimes you meet people who just don't get your sense of humor. #thin-skinned. #vacay vibes." The fury turned to ice. He'd posted this, and Sarah, sitting right next to him, had allowed it, had probably taken the picture. This wasn't just private cowardice, it was public mockery. Her silence wasn't just passive, it was complicit. It was the click I needed. The last thread of my desire to salvage something snapped. I didn't call. I drafted a text. I deleted 10 versions. I wasn't going to explain racism to her. I wasn't going to debate the term tourist right. I was going to state a consequence. Sarah, there's nothing to talk about. What happened last night wasn't a misunderstanding or a failed joke. It was a revelation. Your boyfriend is a bigot. Your silence was consent. Your apology text was an excuse. His social media post mocking us is the confirmation. You saw someone dehumanize my husband to his face, and your primary concern was social awkwardness. That tells me everything I need to know about the limits of your friendship and your character. Do not contact me again. You are no longer welcome in our lives or in our home. I stared at it. It was harsh. Final. There was no, I hope you understand, no opening for debate. It was a door slamming shut. I thought of Leo's face, marble smooth. I thought of the years of friendship, now reduced to this bitter ash. I thought of Mark's smug #vacay vibes. I hit send. The immediate response were 3 dancing dots. Then they disappeared. No reply came. An hour later, I saw the post on Mark's page disappear. A small, petty victory. But the silence from Sarah was the loudest sound of all. It was the sound of acceptance. She didn't fight, she didn't plead, she read my verdict and, in her silence, confirmed its truth. When Leo came home, I showed him my phone, the sent message. He read it slowly. Then he pulled me into a hug, a real one, his body finally relaxing its guard. I'm sorry, he murmured into my hair. For what? For that you had to lose a friend. I didn't lose a friend, I said, the truth clear and clean as glass. I lost the illusion of one, and I'd rather have the truth with you than an illusion with anyone else. We ordered pizza. We ate it on the beautiful new patio table. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was ours. The dinner that broke the world had, in its destruction, revealed the ground we were actually standing on. It was solid. It was real, and we were the only 2 people on it. Life stubbornly moved on. Leo and I fell into a new, closer rhythm. The incident, while horrific, had burned away any lingering, unspoken things. We were a fortress, but a fortress, by definition, knows it's under siege. 3 weeks later, the doorbell rang on a Saturday afternoon. Leo was at the hardware store. I opened the door, and there stood Sarah. She looked older, drained, no Mark in sight. Maya, please, 5 minutes. The shock held me frozen for a second. Then the ice returned. There's nothing to say. I have a lot to say. To Leo too, please. Her eyes were pleading, red-rimmed. Against my better judgment, I stepped back. Leo isn't here. You have 5. She walked in, hovering just inside the doorway as if the house itself might reject her. She didn't look at the patio table. I'm sorry, she blurted. I'm so sorry. I froze. It was so shocking, I just froze. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You thawed out pretty quickly to help him pack up and leave, and to smile for his #vacay vibes post. She flinched. I made him take that down. I didn't know he'd posted it, I swear. That's not the point, Sarah. The point is, you were there. You heard it, and you said nothing. My controlled tone began to crack. You let that word hang in the air over my husband's head, and your biggest concern was whether your boyfriend was embarrassed. I know, she cried, tears finally falling. I know how it looked, but Mark, he's not a bad person. He's just clumsy, and he drinks too much, and he says stupid, offensive things he doesn't mean. It's a flaw. I stared at her, a horrifying clarity dawning. You think this is about Mark's character? This isn't about Mark being a good or bad person. This is about what he did and what you didn't do. You are apologizing for his flaw while asking me to excuse my husband's degradation as collateral damage. You are centering Mark's intention over Leo's injury. She looked bewildered, as if I were speaking a foreign language. But we've been friends forever. Doesn't that count for something? Can't we move past this? There it was, the currency she was trying to spend, shared history. She wanted to trade our past for a pass on the present. Move past it? I echoed. Sarah, look around. This is our home. That word crossed the threshold of our home. You don't move past a violation. You acknowledge it, you atone for it, or you live with the consequence. You chose the consequence the moment you chose silence. Her face hardened, the pleading giving way to something defensive. So that's it? 20 years gone? Because of one ugly word? Not because of the word, Sarah. Because in the moment that word was used, you showed me who you are. And who you are is someone who would let a man like Mark talk to a man like Leo that way. The friendship I thought we had couldn't survive that revelation, because that friendship never really existed. The door opened then. Leo walked in, a bag of concrete mix on his shoulder. He stopped dead, taking in the scene. His eyes met mine, a question in them. Sarah turned to him, fresh tears flowing. Leo, I am so sorry from the bottom of my heart. Leo set the bag down slowly. He didn't look angry, he looked resolved. "Thank you for saying that, Sarah," he said, his voice kind but distant, as if speaking to a client who'd made a regrettable design choice. "But the apology isn't for me, it's for you. Maya told you the consequence. I hope you find your peace with it." His words were a gentle, immovable wall. He wasn't offering forgiveness, he was recognizing her need to apologize for her own conscience. He had already moved on, to a place where she and Mark simply didn't exist. Sarah looked between us, realizing finally that there was no negotiation here. No amount of history could bridge the chasm her silence had carved. She nodded once, a shattered motion, and walked out the door. Leo came over, wrapped his arms around me, and kissed the top of my head. He didn't ask what was said. He just held me as we listened to her car start and drive away, the sound fading until all that was left was the quiet, solid truth of our shared life. The uninvited guest was gone, and the fortress stood silent and strong. Sarah's visit left a residue, a fine, greasy dust of what might have been in the air. It took a week of open windows and deep cleaning of the soul before our home felt entirely ours again. The silence she left behind was different now, not a void, but a space we'd consciously reclaimed. The ripples, however, spread outward. My sister Dana, true to her word, had handled Helen. What that meant became clear when my father called. His voice was gruff, uncomfortable. "Your mother told me about the situation." Helen called her, very upset. "Sarah's taking it hard. She's saying you've become radicalized by Leo." I snorted. Radicalized. As if defending my husband's basic dignity was an extremist position. "Dad, he called Leo a slur. To his face." I know, he said quickly, and it's unacceptable. But is there no path to forgiveness? People make terrible mistakes when they're embarrassed or drinking. The Sarah we knew wouldn't have needed a path," I interrupted, a familiar weariness settling in. "The Sarah we knew would have built a damn bridge herself the second it happened. That Sarah is gone. Or maybe she was never there." He was quiet. "I just hate to see a lifelong friendship end over one man's stupidity." "It didn't end over Mark's stupidity, Dad. It ended over Sarah's choice. She chose the comfort of a bigot over the safety of my family. You don't come back from that." He sighed, the sound of a man who wanted a simpler world. "Well, your mother and I are on your side. We just want you to be happy." It was a concession, not full understanding, but it was enough. The generational front was secure. Other ripples were more surprising. We got a call from our neighbors, Tom and Marie, an older couple who kept to themselves. "We saw the commotion the other week," Tom said on the phone, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "That fella yelling, the car peeling out, then that woman crying on your porch last weekend. Everything all right over there? You need anything? You just holler." Their quiet vigilance was an unexpected bolster. The fortress had lookouts we didn't even know about. The most significant ripple, however, was internal, within Leo. He'd been quiet, even for him in the days after Sarah's visit. I found him one evening staring at the blueprint for his next project, a free community tool library he was designing pro bono. "Penny for your thoughts?" I said, leaning in the doorway. He tapped his pencil on the paper. "I've been thinking about the word sensitive." My heart clenched. "Leo." "No, hear me out," he said, turning to me. "He called me a slur. Then he called me thin-skinned when I didn't laugh. Sarah, in her way, called me overly sensitive. Your dad's call was about forgiveness for a mistake. It's a pattern. The offense is reframed as a reaction problem. My reaction. Your reaction. The injury becomes secondary to the inconvenience of the response." He stood up, pacing the small room. "It's a brilliant, toxic trick. It makes the victim responsible for managing the aftermath of their own victimization. Don't be so sensitive. It was a joke. Can't you move on? The goal isn't even to deny the offense happened anymore. It's to police the permissible level of outrage." He stopped, looked at me. "I'm not sensitive, Maya. I have excellent, finely calibrated sensors. They detected a toxin. My reaction wasn't thin skin, it was a healthy immune response. I rejected the pathogen. I just never expected your friend to be the carrier." His analysis was so clean, so surgically precise, it left me breathless. He'd distilled the entire ugly mess into a matter of emotional epidemiology. He wasn't wounded, he was clinically disgusted. And in that reframing, I felt my own lingering guilt. The "was I too harsh" weed, wither and die. He was right. We weren't overreacting. We were accurately reacting to a profound contamination. This realization freed something in me. The next time I felt a pang of loss for the friendship, I didn't think of the good times. I thought of Leo's metaphor. I was mourning a carrier. The grief was real, but it was for a phantom, a person whose fundamental composition I had misunderstood. Sarah's visit left a residue, a fine, greasy dust of what might have been in the air. It took a week of open windows and deep cleaning of the soul before our home felt entirely ours again. The silence she left behind was different now, not a void, but a space we'd consciously reclaimed. The ripples, however, spread outward. My sister Dana, true to her word, had handled Helen. What that meant became clear when my father called. His voice was gruff, uncomfortable. Your mother told me about the situation. Helen called her, very upset. Sarah's taking it hard. She's saying you've become radicalized by Leo. I snorted. Radicalized, as if defending my husband's basic dignity was an extremist position. Dad, he called Leo a slur, to his face. I know, he said quickly, and it's unacceptable. But is there no path to forgiveness? People make terrible mistakes when they're embarrassed or drinking. The Sarah we knew wouldn't have needed a path, I interrupted, a familiar weariness settling in. The Sarah we knew would have built a damn bridge herself the second it happened. That Sarah is gone, or maybe she was never there. He was quiet. I just hate to see a lifelong friendship end over one man's stupidity. It didn't end over Mark's stupidity, Dad. It ended over Sarah's choice. She chose the comfort of a bigot over the safety of my family. You don't come back from that. He sighed, the sound of a man who wanted a simpler world. Well, your mother and I are on your side. We just want you to be happy. It was a concession, not full understanding, but it was enough. The generational front was secure. Other ripples were more surprising. We got a call from our neighbors Tom and Marie, an older couple who kept to themselves. We saw the commotion the other week, Tom said on the phone, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. That feller yelling, the car peeling out, then that woman crying on your porch last weekend. Everything all right over there? You need anything, you just holler. Their quiet vigilance was an unexpected bolster. The fortress had lookouts we didn't even know about. The most significant ripple, however, was internal, within Leo. He'd been quiet, even for him in the days after Sarah's visit. I found him one evening staring at the blueprint for his next project, a free community tool library he was designing pro bono. "A penny for your thoughts?" I said, leaning in the doorway. He tapped his pencil on the paper. "I've been thinking about the word sensitive." My heart clenched. Leo? "No, hear me out," he said, turning to me. He called me a slur. Then he called me thin-skinned when I didn't laugh. Sarah, in her way, called me overly sensitive. Your dad's call was about forgiveness for a mistake. It's a pattern. The offense is reframed as a reaction problem. My reaction. Your reaction. The injury becomes secondary to the inconvenience of the response. He stopped, looked at me. "I'm not sensitive, Maya. I have excellent, finely calibrated sensors. They detected a toxin. My reaction wasn't thin skin. It was a healthy immune response. I rejected the pathogen. I just never expected your friend to be the carrier." His analysis was so clean, so surgically precise, it left me breathless. He'd distilled the entire ugly mess into a matter of emotional epidemiology. He wasn't wounded, he was clinically disgusted. And in that reframing, I felt my own lingering guilt, the "was I too harsh" weed, wither and die. He was right. We weren't overreacting. We were accurately reacting to a profound contamination. This realization freed something in me. The next time I felt a pang of loss for the friendship, I didn't think of the good times. I thought of Leo's metaphor. I was mourning a carrier. The grief was real, but it was for a phantom, a person whose fundamental composition I had misunderstood.